Do you know what a purity ring is? A purity ring is something that we used to mock when I was in school. According to Wikipedia, they are worn as a sign of chastity. The practice originated in the United States in the 1990s as part of the purity movement, that gave rise to Christian-affiliated sexual abstinence groups. Wearing a purity ring is typically accompanied by a religious vow to practice abstinence until marriage. Chastity rings are part of abstinence-only sex education movement and are intended to help the wearer recognize their self-worth and remind them that there is more to a relationship than sex. Under the Bush administration, organizations that promote abstinence and encourage teens to sign virginity pledges or wear purity rings have received federal grants. The Silver Ring Thing, a subsidiary of Pennsylvania Evangelical Church, has received more than $1 million from the government to promote abstinence and sell its rings in the United States and abroad. In 2005, the ACLU of Massachusetts brought charges against this decision, alleging that the Silver Ring program did not ensure its secularity and hence ineligible for federal funding due to the Establishment Clause of the First Amendment. Man, I thought that this was the silliest and dumbest thing in the world when I was a kid. I thought there is no way in hell you're going to stop young people from having sex with one another. I mean, it certainly didn't stop any of us when we were young in the 90s, but now we're not young and we're not in the 90s, and things have very definitely changed. And the funny thing about it is, the Evangelicals won. People just are not getting it on. I mean, that's an article from Britain we'll look at in a second. A record percentage of American adults not having sex has reached a record high. People are just not getting it on. 23% of adults, nearly 1/4 of American adults, are not even having sex. Not even slightly. I guess they're not into it. But anyway, going back to the UK one, again, 1 in 4 men haven't had sex in the last year, apparently, and one expert said the rise of technology is the reason why. Well, are you sure they're not all just on their knees and praying to Jesus? Could be that. The General Social Survey, 23% of over 18 said they lack intimacy in their lives. According to Fox News, a large proportion of these are 20-something men. And while it's easier than ever to find a hookup online or in a dating app, abstinence appears to be an all-time high. The Washington Post looked at sex survey data from the last decade. It found that 3 times as many males under 30 reported no sex over the course of 12 months. While 28% of young men have abstained for a year, this figure sits at 18% for women aged between 18 and 30. So that's good news, isn't it? More young men are not getting laid than young women, and they put it down to video games. Of course, video games are responsible for this. Because of course, why wouldn't young men rather have video games than have sex with young women? But to be honest with you, I don't think it's quite that way. I think it's one of those, do you remember that, I should have got this up for this video, but do you remember that OkCupid did a survey, and 80% of women using the site, 80% of the men using the site were rated as less than average attractiveness by the women using it, because it seems that these sites are kind of distorting people's view on what attractiveness actually is. And it seems that a smaller percentage of higher tier males are getting more of the women than the lower tier males because of sexual promiscuity. And so it's kind of forcing abstinence onto these guys. I mean, who knows? Is it the video games that do it, or is it the fact that they just can't get any that's doing it? And if you're a guy who's not getting any and you wish you were and you can't, well, you've got a few options. The first one I would suggest would be lower your standards. It's just the easiest thing to do. Secondly, just start getting fit. I know you can be like, well, that's not the answer. I'm an incel. Of course that's not the answer. I can't possibly do that. You'd be surprised. And the thing is, right, women are very naturally turned off by desperation, frankly. They can smell it a mile away. Look like you have something going on, and women will come to you. They will honestly come to you, probably because they'll feel like something else is getting attention taken away from them. But seriously, it's one of those things where nobody really knows why this is the case. There are lots of theories, obviously, and the most popular one at the moment by the establishment is to blame it on video games. Well, I don't think it's video games that have been doing this. We had video games in the 90s, obviously. They were just not as advanced as they are now, graphically anyway. but video games are around the whole time. I mean, like, everyone I knew had video games. Like, it wasn't a rare thing for people to have consoles and computers. This hasn't really changed. It's really, I think, about the sort of social effect of dating apps and things like this, because they certainly weren't around. So you had a much more restricted range of women that you could meet. And I think that that's kind of having the effect. And I mean, really, like, it can't possibly be sort of a satisfying life to be wasting your time with people that you don't really know or care about, right? I mean, it's easy for me to say because I'm married, but it's just one of those things that it always baffled me. It's like, do you have no thought for your own future? That's what it is. Because ladies, right, the last thing you want to do is get a reputation for being a slut and then hit the wall. Because the number of beta men who are going to, wife you up, I think that number's probably dwindling. I think probably a lot of young men are well aware of what you're trying to do, which is effectively scam them. And I know that sounds harsh, and I'm going to get, the SJWs are going to go nuts, but that's kind of what it is. I mean, you've all seen the sort of the text chats going around where someone was like, I wanted to date you, but you were too good, and I wanted to save you until you were until I was ready to get married. And it's like, well then, if ever a woman says that to you, lads, that's it. You just delete the number, get on with your life. Don't even consider it. Do not allow yourself to be treated that way. And again, this all comes down to how desperate you seem. You absolutely have to make your time a rare commodity that she has to compete for. And that means that she has to have some standards of her own. And that means, she has to impress you as much as you have to impress her. Because ladies, I'm not saying this all goes one way. Obviously, it doesn't. But guys, you don't need to feel like it is just you out on some limb on your own and you've got nothing to offer. You obviously have things to offer, right? You have to start realizing your own self-worth in this regard. If you've got a decent job, understand it, hold it, keep it to you, and then make sure that the woman that you're with or that you're potentially dating or are dating understands that you're not just here because you have no other options. If you're a man who's upwardly mobile, you've got a good job, you're hardworking, you're sensible, you're not like a 2 out of 5, 10 or something, make sure you understand your own worth and make sure that the lady you're with understands that you have some worth. You've got to do this yourself. No one's going to do it for you, and people will take advantage of you if you don't sort of, basically hold your head up high and take some pride in yourself. So, if that, this has been an all over the place video, hasn't it? But basically all I'm saying is the Evangelicals have won. They got what they wanted. Stop having sex before marriage. Well, okay, yeah, there we go. No, now 1 in 4 men is not having sex before marriage. Good job. That's what everyone wanted.